Please welcome Apple Music's lead anchor and global creative director, Zane Lowe.
Hey, sorry, I wasn't trying to make you wait. We were trying to find the microphone. How you guys doing? Good to see everybody. Yeah. I mean, you've just witnessed one of the greatest documentaries about the creative arts and the journey of art and the artist who makes it ever, in my opinion. I've watched them all, pretty much every single one. I'm obsessed with the process of making art and the people who make it. It's kind of defined my life. But when I watched this movie, it was so different. It was so unique because it told the story from the perspective of an artist at the start, the very start. Normally these kind of documentaries, they get made, when we're all much, much older and we're telling stories that are 20, 30, 40, 50 years old and, people have kind of lived a life. But this was at the very start of a life that has so much more living to be done and so much more music to be made. And it just was an incredible achievement. And so I'm really proud to be here to be able to conduct this conversation, to take you a little bit further into the behind the making of this amazing movie, which you've just witnessed. And to do so, I want to welcome to the stage the director of this incredible film, RJ Cutler, if he's prepared. What's up, man? Good to see you. Welcome. Of course, the superstar who's the subject of the film herself, Billie Eilish, is here. And of course, Billie's parents, who without them, this documentary wouldn't have been made. Maggie and Patrick, welcome them to the stage, please. Yep. Grab a seat, grab a seat. All right. I'm not sure if you heard the applause at the end of the documentary, but there was a lot, which was nice to hear off to the side. Well, it's good to see you all. I'm trying to remember the last time I saw all of us together was the beginning of this whole experience. The movie was about to come out. We were gathered on top of a mountain in Los Angeles. It was a very extremely exciting occasion, not an average place for a conversation and a film premiere. I remember your hair was green and you looked like you wanted to rip it out.
It was a wig.
Yeah, you already had the blonde?
It was fully a wig, yeah.
Yeah. You looked like you were ready to move on and start a new chapter of your life, but you also looked incredibly emotional at that moment in time, getting ready to release that film. What are your memories of the beginning of this journey before we all got to watch the film when it was ready to go on that particular night?
Scared. I was very nervous. And because, it's my life. It was not a fake movie. It was a very real and good interpretation of the 3 years that we were filming it, or however long it was. And that's really scary, It's hard to tell anybody a lot of information about your life, let alone, put it on a platform for literally anyone in the world to see. And I was excited and scared and nervous and worried and hopeful and also just mainly just really excited.
I think that's one of the things that everyone loves about the film now that millions of people have seen it is just how brave and honest and vulnerable and open everybody on this stage is about this. I think documentaries often get in their own way. And people start with the idea of being honest and open, RJ, and then halfway through they panic. And people freak out and they want to change and take things out. And I never got a sense that was the case in this film. I know there was a lot that didn't make it in because there was a 25-hour cut at one point. but the original cut was as it was, right? How you all wanted it.
Well, sure. I mean, our process, we kind of rely on it going the other way of what you're describing, that the relationship between the filmmaking team and the subjects grows over time. You get to know each other more and more. You become more open to each other, and that's both in the filming and in what the subjects are willing to show you, quite literally, and where they're willing to take you, and that connection which is based on trust, develops over time, and so it's often the bulk of the film. This film's very different because Billie was so, and Maggie and Patrick and Phineas were so available from the beginning that the material's incredibly rich from the beginning, but but it gets even deeper as the film goes. It's really was quite a great experience.
You know, it's incredibly unique because normally as a director or an artist, you find a chemistry, you figure out what you want to say, and then you have to deal really with a team or something in between trying to protect you and make sure the result's great. But this is different because we have two very supportive and clearly loving and caring parents. Essential to you in your growth as a person, but also keeping a steady hand during the craziest time of your life up to that point. So the question for Maggie and for Patrick is, you know, you had footage, you'd been filming the kids from a young age, but it's very different when you welcome in, you know, acclaimed director like RJ and begin this whole other process. Were there times when you felt you bitten off more than you could chew and it was like, wow, we really are in a different life, a different home now?
You know, there were so many hard parts because our house is relatively small and it's a 2-bedroom house. And we often have, it's just full, chock block full of suitcases, 12 suitcases that are unpacking and repacking and boxes of things we have to look at. And it's a mess. I mean, every single time. And, and then Billy would have a fitting and there would be racks and racks of clothes. And I mean, it's a 1,200 square foot house. And then you've got a film crew in there, and you just have to kind of just swallow, and go like, they're going to just see the mess and the life. And, when the idea of a documentary came up, I love movies. I love documentaries especially. And so I did not actually welcome the idea of being in one, but I knew, like, as a viewer, that it was worth documenting, so it was kind of like, for the greater good of...
But that is such an interesting narrative. If it had just been a documentary about a young person finding success, it would have been interesting enough and it would have been great enough. But it wouldn't have had this incredible undercurrent, this thread that ran through it of family. And I think that's the thing that was the most emotional to watch. I've watched it several times since that night with my kids and my family and people. And it's about this kind of, the importance of family really comes through, Patrick, I think. There's so many essential and sensitive moments.
I saw this is the first time I've seen it on a big screen. I mean, we saw it in a drive-in under, sketchy conditions, but it was so wonderful to see it, in a beautiful projection with beautiful music and everything else. And so many things struck me that I hadn't quite seen before, even though I've seen it a couple of times, and I saw the rough cut. Maggie did so much filming, I don't know. In fact, I was struck by how much film there was that you weren't present for, you know what I mean? There were the locked off cameras in the room and lots of things that, and I used to, before Billy was a thing, her brother had a band and I was always the guy filming everything and I was messing with tripods and in the audience. And I ceded that entirely to you. Eventually, Maggie took over. Maggie always had a camera and still does, really. And so much of the footage was hers, and I was re-struck by all of that, by the intimacy and the availability of Billy to you and to us, and it was wonderful to see. And yeah, I mean, it really is a family. It was a family thing. Billy was so young. She was living at home. We were her parents. It wasn't like we stepped in. It was like she had to have parents, and there we were. And
just want to remind you, you're still her parent. Just FYI.
I know.
It's
yeah,
not,
but it was an amazing thing to live through. It's still an amazing thing to live through every day. I mean, today this is an amazing thing to live through, and it's wonderful that it's been documented.
I'm not sure I guess somebody might have made a movie that was just about this extraordinary young artist coming of age, but for me it was impossible not to recognize that it was also a movie about this extraordinary young woman coming of age, and that's a family story. From the day that we all met in your backyard, it was just very clear, and there wasn't another way to do it. And to have the mother's point of view behind the camera in so much footage. Now, Jenna Rocher, who's here, Jenna's here, shot this film and is, of course, one of the great verite cinematographers, and I've been saying it's like it's time to call it something besides cinema verite. It's time to call it something like neo verite, because the subject now has a camera around them their whole lives. We all do. We've all got a camera in our pocket. It's great. The new ones are even better than the ones last year.
Skadoosh.
And so the access we're going to continue to have to subjects' lives through footage that is shot by somebody like Maggie, and also what a brilliant photographer. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy to see that footage, right? It's truly beautiful.
You've had some significant set time. You've seen it from inside the space. You know what a good shot is.
But I think the amazing thing to me about seeing the movie, and I do think it's the new documentary filmmaking, is that, you know, the art is now constructing that story. Because I don't think when you started, you even maybe thought you were going to use our footage so much. But the art of incorporating home footage and professional
editing
footage.
too, and Lindsay Utes and Greg Fenton are the editors, and they're here, and that's brilliant editing, the choices. But then also we have Billy's footage, that backyard scene, that's Billy shooting, right? The backyard scene where Patrick's picking up the rat and everything else, and Billy's kind of guiding the director, that's through her eyes. So you're able to see the world through your subject's eyes, through your subject's mother's eyes. I mean, it's really, it's unique. It's not, you know, it's been played with over years as the kind of the evolution of the camera in your pocket has happened, but it's reaching this moment now where there's so much opportunity.
Access all the time. I mean, this is the new normal. I don't know if it is normal. I don't know what it means further down the line, and you make a very, very clear statement in the movie about the mental state of mind amongst teenagers these days.
Well, to that end, I will say that you did ask me, RJ, if I remembered if I had any footage of, you know, Billy, when you were at your lowest point and you were really, and you said, do you happen to have any footage of that? I was like, I wasn't filming that. Like, I put my phone, you know, there are moments in life that should not be filmed.
Yeah, but yet we've seen a lot of them in this documentary, as I said, in a really brave and vulnerable way positioned, and I think it's really helpful for kids of a certain age recognizing that what you're going through is what they're going through, what I went through as a kid. These things don't change. Access to films and cameras and everything else, it makes it easier. They don't change, and yet I wonder, Billy, whether there was something that stayed in the edit that we've all just seen, that everyone's seen, that was hard for you to watch.
Yes, lots of stuff. I mean, again, it was not acting. None of it was like I wasn't playing a character. It was real life footage of my life, you know. And yeah, it's a small sliver of what my life was. There's tons that nobody knows about, but that's how it should be. But what's weird is that a lot of the stuff that was hard for me to watch, the reason it was hard is because that I didn't actually really know, or I guess process, that there was a camera on me. Because I'm not really aware of stuff like that, because there's cameras everywhere all the time in my life. And it was just funny because, you know, for watching the first cut, I paused it like 17,000 times because I just had to take a moment, because it was fucking crazy. Because there were these moments that for me, not just in the movie, but were incredibly traumatizing experiences in my life. And then suddenly I could watch them, and there's nothing in the world like that at all. I mean, I feel like it's been a thing forever if you wish that you could go back and like rewatch things that happened. Good things usually.
But that's what I said. Most documentaries exist when we're all old and bald and gray and wrinkled, and it's like, oh, I remember 40 years ago, it was a great night. You know, it doesn't happen in real time like this. It doesn't happen when you're living through it. I mean, I feel like when we had that conversation on the mountain, you were one day older than the end of the documentary.
Yeah.
Well, that's just another great. First of all, there is, of course, a whole genre of verite films where they are filmed in the moment, and there's a great tradition. And with artists, it goes back to Don't Look Back and Monterey Pop and Gimme Shelter and so many other films that were touchstones for us in the making of this film. But the other thing is that these films are time capsules in a way, and they capture a moment in time. And what will it be like to look at this film in 5 years, in 10 years, in 30 years? It's one of the things that we think about when we're making it. We understand that the film will have a long life, as the subject does, and that's just part of the nature of it. It becomes a dialogue. The film becomes a dialogue with the moment it was made and the moment you then watch it later on.
Congratulations. I haven't even really seen you much since the album came out, but the album's incredible.
Woohoo! Yeah.
And what I think everybody was, certainly I recognized when I heard it for the first time, was that it may be the most important album that you ever make in one aspect, and that it clears the lane for you to make anything you want forever. Do you know what I mean? Like when you make a debut album that's that well loved by all of us in this room, it's a challenge to imagine what life is like after that. And I wonder how important making this film with RJ was to allowing you to put a ribbon on that time, clear the plate, and eat something new.
Yeah, so true. It really was like the end of the era. And the end of an era doesn't mean, you're a new, different person and you're the same person. It's like weird to put things in boxes, but it's also very, I think.
We do it all day, every day. Everybody does it. We compartmentalize everything in our lives. It's how we process information.
We put it all in boxes and it makes it all feel more memorable. And it really is crazy. I mean, I kind of want to make like 8 more.
I was going to ask that question, if you'd make another one. Yeah, because it's like, this is like the new meta-modern snapshot. This is Polaroid on like...
Yeah.
How did it influence you've made incredible films, and one after the other, I'm sure to some degree, just like an artist does, a song or an album will ultimately inform the next thing that you do, even subconsciously. So I wonder how working in this space with an artist like Billie at this point in her life and all the things we've talked about on the stage, how that changed you as a filmmaker going forward.
What a great question. This film, this entire experience was a complete inspiration for me. It reawakened or revitalized my passion for filmmaking, for storytelling. I think that every one of us who worked on this were touched by the experience in a very unique way. It was a complicated movie to make because a lot of it, post-production was made, usually in a room together. Post-production was made during COVID, and we had to figure out how to use technology to overcome the barriers of distance, and we found a way, and we really dove deep, and we were able to dive deep because we were trusted by these remarkable people who shared their story with us completely. And the filming of it was a similar experience. It was endlessly rich, and it changed my life as an artist, and it's I suspect it will forever be a touchstone for me as a result.
I mean, every director on the planet would have wanted to tell this story, but I truly think you're the only one that could have done it the way that it was told. So, really, truly, RJ is incredible. So,
I will tell you that when I met Billie and Maggie, Patrick, and Phineas in the backyard, and I said to Billie, what do you think a film would be like? She said, I want it to be like The Office.
And it is.
And look at that. And here we are years later, and she's like, it was just like The Office. So whatever we did.
Patrick, I wanted to ask you if there's a scene, having just seen the film again, to your point, in this environment, whether there was a scene that was particularly touching or moving or funny or emotional, something that really stood out for you. I have one that involves you, actually, but I wonder what yours is.
Well, I have to say that all the visceral problems that beset Billy really struck me this time. I mean, they weren't especially, significant psychological moments, but they were crushing to me. I mean, when you sprain your ankle in Milan, and when you were, when you had the shin splints and you had to be carried all over the place, and I remember that so well, and it really came back, and then the whole that whole sort of 2/3 of the way through that
The rough
the
section,
rough
the
part,
rough
yeah, with the relationship, and so I was very much struck with that, and I was actually much more struck with all the humor in it today.
It's a
One
funny
scene
film.
doesn't sort of pop out to me so much. Actually, your monologues do, I have to say.
No, it's true. It's true.
We're both
Maggie,
actors.
Maggie,
I
Maggie with
think
the
of it
truth
that way.
bombs for sure.
In the kitchen, Dad? Like
The
when she
kitchen and at Red Rocks, when you're talking about being teenagers and how tough it is to be a teenager, and the wisdom you have and the motherly love and advice and that kind of stuff.
even just the space when you're having an incredibly human moment on the bus, and you're just, for the first time, you let your guard down, and it's like, I'm not this robot, like I'm a kid figuring this out, and I need some space, and you have to protect my circle, because I don't want to present my worst self. I need the support to present my best self, to not disappoint people. And you just give her this space to figure that out. And I love it when you say that every kid who's going through something like this, if you're lucky enough to fulfill your dreams, should have a parent present. We're looking back on generation after generation that really weren't there. And if they were at times, history's told us, may have been part of the problem. It's crushing. You think about it, isn't it? It's crazy. For you, Maggie, was there a moment in the film?
There's so many moments, again, every time you get hurt, every time you get disappointed. The hard moments for me are those moments where I feel like where I failed a little, I didn't protect enough, and, it's a really hard journey. And, okay, I'm a crier, so sorry, but, it didn't just happen to Billy, it happened to all of us, and it's not something that you really want to have. I mean, it's all easy to say, like, oh, I want my child to fulfill their dreams or whatever, but you don't. Nobody really wants all the stuff that comes with it.
There's no such thing as perfect. It's like you get this opportunity to travel and see the world, well, in a fraction in between all the work you have to do and everything else. We know this story. We've heard it over and over again, but it's just it's another example of what everyone here has to face every day, all day. There's no perfect.
It's not.
Yeah, I have to say that I find this movie very satisfying to watch because so many things are included that wouldn't otherwise be included. I can't tell you how many people are like, oh my God, you guys are the best parents in the world. And I was like, well,
Not really.
you have to understand there's ups and downs and it's not clear sailing. And this movie is really shows all of that. And I appreciate that. And it's, it really is like the scene in the van where you're talking about, I never get to have a moment that's bad. It's very satisfying to me that actually made it on screen and that we get to see that. And the triumphs, and too, all the amazing things that happen.
That moment, though, when you drive off and you come out and you're like, is she gone? And that kind of crushes me as a parent because, your kids, you want them, you hope they leave, and go and find some independence and develop some identity. But the fact you missed it.
Oh, she was real
I was
upset
actually
about it,
really
actually.
mad.
She was very, very upset behind the camera.
I was pretty mad.
Yeah.
I mean, I was nicer about it, but it was sad. It was really, really sad.
Yeah.
But and for us, on some level, the film is the story of parents preparing themselves for their daughter to take off, and this is a universal thing, right? It's universal that your daughter's going to get into a car and drive off. It's universal that she's going to become you hope her truest self, but she's going to become who she's going to become. This is what happened to Billie this year. So it stands in for everybody's experience in that way. And I felt very early on that this was parents holding on some level for dear life, even as they were learning how to let go, even as they were holding on for dear life, even as they were learning how to let go. And that's, I mean, my oldest is 6 and we're already freaking out that one day she'll go.
Oh, I mean, you're a crier, I'm a crier. I think about our boys and woo, leaving one day and going to college or whatever. Woo, forget it. Don't talk to me for a few weeks. It's a concert film too. Let's not forget, incredible performances, amazing, really capturing the energy of those first tours. I cannot wait to see this new album performed live. I haven't yet, but I know you've gone again. But just brilliant to be able to weave that in. And again, congratulations to your editors, because they made that a real through line without it feeling like a separate experience.
Well, it's a musical, and we talked about that from moment one, that the music was going to be was going to communicate emotion and narrative and tone, and that it would function that way throughout. And that is, this whole film is scored by Billie and Phineas. It's all their music from moment one. The underscoring of each scene are the stems that they trusted us to work with, and then supported us when we presented it and when it was done. And that is beautiful editing. But there's also the beautiful performance shooting, the filming that Jenna did, that was emotional and intimate and character driven. And again, we were inspired by those incredible films, Give Me Shelter, Don't Look Back, the intimacy of that. But Jenna brought that into this moment with Billie, and Billie trusted her. That final image of where Billie's singing Ocean Eyes, she's about 4 stories up on the side of Radio City Music Hall. Then she was, believe me, nobody will ever be allowed to do it again. They just didn't, and it never occurred to them that somebody would climb up a wall. And she climbed up the wall, and Jenna climbed up with her. And Danny, are you here? Is Danny here? Oh, it's his wife's birthday. Well, anyway, one of Billie's managers was like, "What is going on?" So I was like, "Don't worry, that's all good." They rehearsed, but what trust, again, Billie trusted Jenna to go up there with her and to shoot that's fantastic stuff. And there's Billie floating 4 stories above the world, singing Ocean Eyes at Radio City Music Hall. And that's why you feel that it has so many layers of meaning, because if you had designed it in a narrative,
it wouldn't have been authentic.
Exactly.
It also was such a good relationship that we all had, where nobody was trying to make me feel invaded. It's not like I would say, "Get out, I can't be here." Every time I was like, "Can I have some space?" Everyone's like, "Yeah, we're leaving." And that was really important, to not feel like I was being exploited. Like I felt like I was in control, and I felt like I had a say, and I didn't, it wasn't like I was forced to do it. So and with this kind of thing, you have to think not as yourself, because yourself wants to go, "I don't want anyone to see me in bad moments. I don't want anyone to see me vulnerable, or look weird, or have a weird outfit on, or not wearing makeup, or just out of bed. I don't want to see people. I don't want people to see me like that." And you have to literally just take yourself out of it. I don't want people to see a horrible situation I was in. It's embarrassing. But I just had to look at it from, an audience's perspective, and it worked for me. And I would also just say about the scoring, I love it so much because all of the underlying music is just instrumentals and different parts from songs, and it was so trippy because, there's that scene of me driving home from Coachella, which was one of the most horrible periods of my life. And I was in a very deep, dark, limbo of a headspace to a thing that me and Phineas created. And when you create a piece of music, it feels so much stronger than any other music can. And so to hear, to see footage that I didn't know was being filmed, I thought the camera was off. Jenna was sitting next to me, but I just wasn't thinking about it. I was fucking gone. I was literally just not there anymore. And when we watched the doc, I was bawling my eyes out because it was so in time with the music, so like rhythmic, and it was so traumatizing. But it's so good.
Which is the hallmarks of a great visual documentary piece, which is like all the truth on display, trauma and all. For all of the reasons that we've discussed on this stage and so many more, this movie now exists in a historical timeline of true stories told, fascinating lives, snapshots, and it's a classic. It's a classic. And people will watch this over and over again and carry it with them forever. And you may not, but we will. And it's been great to be able to just reflect on that. Gosh, I don't even know when it was now, maybe 6 months or whatever since we last caught up on this. But congratulations on everything with the documentary, and thank you for watching.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you for watching.